Well, good morning and welcome to the Wednesday check-in with Pastor Brian. That's me. It has been a delight to be able to welcome you every Wednesday morning to this check-in time. I have been spending some time outside this morning as the temperatures are a little bit lower than normal and a little bit lower humidity makes for a good time to spend some time in the morning working. And so I've been doing that, but I am back inside now in a space that may or may not be familiar to you. This is a behind-the-scenes space. If you've ever been a part of the Altar Guild or done work helping with worship, you might have been in this space. This is what we call the Sacristy. And some might think of this as a storage area or a prep area, but I want to talk a little bit today about why it is those things, but it's also much more than that. And so, as we think about all of the things that happen in worship and have to happen to prepare for worship, this is one of the most vital spaces. Here we have a sink, and you might think, why do we need a sink in a place that's really a closet or a prep space? Well, when we do communion, we have to be able to have a space to wash off all of the chalices and the patens and what the bread and the juice go in, and to be able to wash our hands and sanitize everything. Even before COVID-19, when we were able to take communion, we were doing lots of sanitizing and prepping in between services before it goes out to be consecrated for the service for us to all enjoy. It has to be prepped somewhere, and so it's prepped here. This is also a place that we prepare for baptisms. As we have water that is not quite cold but not quite hot, because typically when you have water on your head, especially if you're a little baby, you're not going to be too excited if it's too cold, especially if it's too hot. We don't want that either. So this is a place where that happens as well. We prepare for our communion and baptizing our sacraments. And so this is one of the most important spaces, you might say, in addition to our sanctuary, because it is a place where we prepare for sacraments, ways that we are in intentional and specific relationship with God. Things that also happen in this space, for the storage element, there's all sorts of cords, if I could get one off here, that you will find that we use for being able to hear musicians and to hook up mics and all sorts of things. So that stuff is stored in here. We have a number of different drawers here that have some cleaning supplies, some linens, some other things that might decorate the altar. Back there, you can't really see it. I would go back there, but there's not much light back there. There's a bunch of closets full of other altarscape material, other things you might be interested in seeing at certain times of year with autumnal lands, altarscapes and other things. The phone that I'm actually recording on is sitting on top of a file cabinet full of organ and choral music. Again, things that help us to facilitate worship, items that help us to be participating and enjoying and noticing things in worship. And so while we might not always think of those places and those spaces that maybe just seemed like closets or areas that we pass through on the way to something else, I want us today to think about how these kinds of spaces, even closets and storage spaces, help us to do other things that are really important to us. Because, for example, if we didn't have this room, it would be a lot harder to make worship happen on a Sunday morning. It would be a lot harder for us to be able to have communion together when we're able to do that. It would be a lot harder for the organ to be played or the musicians to do what they need to do with their equipment. It doesn't mean it wouldn't happen necessarily, but it would be hard to be able to do what we do and what we do so well, which is to be able to be with God in an intentional way on a Sunday morning or other times of the week. And so I give you that today as a reminder that even those spaces in our lives that might seem mundane, that might seem like, those are just to hold things or to store things, they could actually be the places that help us connect with God, that help us enjoy our lives, that help us to flourish, and that even allow for God to enter into our lives in an even more intentional way. I offer that to you as a word of curiosity, as a word of giving thanks for all things in our life, big and small, glorious to our eyes and mundane to our eyes. Let us know below how you're doing. We are in the thick of it still, I know, and we are heading towards the end of the summer, and so we've been thinking a lot about ways to continue to connect with people in new ways, and so you might see in the next couple of weeks this Wednesday morning space might morph into something else. We're looking at ways to increase excitement and engagement as we continue to engage in this way. And so if you have any ideas about what you could use on a Sunday or a Wednesday or any other day of the week, let us know. We're always open to feedback, and we're always open to doing what we need to do to connect you with one another, with us, and with God. I believe that's all I've got. So take care and have yourself a good Wednesday.